Okay, we should be live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Big Body Stories live streamed. I'm Phil Porter. I'm one of the co-founders of InterPlay. And if you don't know what InterPlay is an active, creative way to unlock the wisdom of the body. And you can always find out more about InterPlay at interplay.org. But we play around with improvisation, playing with stories and movement and sounds. And one of the forms that we use is what we call a big body story. And in a big body story, you have access to all of those forms. You can use movement, you can use sound, you can use story, and you can combine it in any way you want. So that's what we do when we come together to tell big body stories. And these we're going to live stream on YouTube. We're glad that you're with us. If you, and just to remember that all these stories are improvised, they're being made up on the spot, so we don't rehearse these beforehand. If you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, you will have access to the chat box on YouTube. And we invite you, if you would like to just say who you are and where you are, that's fine. But also, one of the things that we do after each story is that those of us here are in the storytelling circle, just jot a few short words or phrases about the story that we just heard in our chat box in Zoom. And at the same time, you could do that same thing in YouTube. You could go to the chat box and just put in a word or phrase, anything you noticed about the story that you just heard. We'll do that after each story. And then we'll read the ones that are on Zoom. And then Mary Ellen will read any comments that might be put on YouTube, so we can share those with the whole circle. But we're really glad that you're with us today to hear these stories. And I'd just like to ask the rest of the group to introduce themselves, maybe in the order that we're going to tell our stories.
I'm Mary Ellen May, and I'm on the land of the Kaskaskia, Kickapoo, and Miami people in Bloomington, Indiana.
I'm Randy Newswanger on land of the Susquehannock and Conestoga in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
I'm Shelley. I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
I'm Ruba. I'm on Kalapuya land in Eugene, Oregon.
I'm Angela Rata, and I'm on the land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people in Oakland, California.
And I'm Phil Porter. I'm also in Oakland on Ohlone land. So I think we're ready to begin. And Mary Ellen, you're going to be up first.
Thank you. It all comes pouring out at night. When we sit there putting my children to bed, it's like that's when the stuff comes out. And last night there was a lot of stuff, especially from my little one. And he was just, I think he'd kind of been holding it in all day. And there was a busy day, and then he had a basketball game. And so finally he was just like, just the whole, man, he just said, I'm just barely making it through the day and this whole thing. I've been putting children to bed for 12 years. And I had no idea. I don't know why. I didn't know that was going to be a thing, that it's like a major big deal to put someone else to sleep at night who has tons of energy and just tons of stuff. And it all comes out at bedtime. And that's just the time of day that I'm just tired. I'm so tired. And I just want some time for myself. And I have this much time for myself at the end of the day. And I don't want to stay up too late, but I also want to be there for them. It's just kind of a mixed bag. And my husband, we got married 2 years ago. He's not the biological father of my kids, but he's definitely a father to my kids. And he didn't know about bedtime when he got together with us. And he was like, why does this take so long? Is it really necessary? And I was, trying to like explain it to him. And also like he understands that we only have this much time at the end of the day. And so I have this schedule of bedtime, and like, here's when this happens, and here's when this happens, and here's when this happens. And we follow it. We follow it to the T because it works. But it's so sweet. And my 9-year-old, who was having so much trouble, he's very physical. Like he just wants to be touched and he wants to be held. And he's a big kid. My kids are giant children. Christoph is 9 and he is over 100 pounds and 4'9". And he's just huge, but he loves to be held and touched. And he still likes to sit on my lap, which I love. And he's just at this sweet little point where I don't know when it's going to end, because he still asks, can I sit in your lap? He doesn't even ask, he just sits on my lap. But I don't know how much longer that's going to go for. It's just so bittersweet this time. I hope he'll be my baby forever. I hope they'll both be my baby forever. My older one, he's already like, Mom, don't touch me. He's not a physical touch person. He is definitely like, so I kind of have to like ask him, can I rub your hair? But they both need help falling asleep. And it's a worthy effort, because it all comes out. It's like this time of the end of the day, they all store it up, and then it's like, and then it's feels like exformation, just helping them to get that stuff out so that they can really just. And the craziest thing recently, my youngest said, I love bedtime. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it, because he's the one who fights. He fights it. He fights sleep. And he just said, I love bedtime. And he curled up in his blanket and he was so cozy. And I thought, okay, all right, this is going to work well. This is going to be okay.
And take a deep breath. And here in this circle, we'll put some notes in the chat box. And if you're watching online, you can put some notes, some words or phrases that you responded to in the story in the chat box on YouTube. We'll just take a little minute to do this.
Thank you. Randy says, sweet and bittersweet, such tenderness in line item processes. Ruba says, I've been putting children to sleep for 12 years, a place that's safe at the end of the day to let it all come out. Oh, I feel like I could use that. What a lifelong gift you are giving them, Mary Ellen. Shelley said, exformation and stillness. Love how you can offer your kids both. Phil said, bedtime rituals, connection, openness. So good to hear these stories of family connection. And Angela said, thank you for real bedtime stories and for over a decade. I love bedtime. I would love bedtime with you. Thank you so much for witnessing.
Yeah. And anything online?
Yeah. So.
Okay. All right, we'll take another deep breath and let it out. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Randy, you're up next.
I remember in the springtime on the college campus where I was for 4 years. I remember by the theater building, down the steps next to the building is where the first crocuses would bloom in an Indiana spring when there might still be some snow, some other places on the campus. And that's when I realized, I bet that crocus is blooming there first because that building is a big warm building and it's sunk into the ground and probably there's heat coming out from the ground, and wherever the warm earth gets warm enough, that's probably. And so now when I have a crocus that blooms right next to my house along where the basement is, I think, well, yeah, that could bloom anytime because it's so warm. But it was feeling like the crocuses might be blooming in my garden a little early. And earlier this week when I saw the rows of daffodils, and there was one daffodil in Lancaster, Pennsylvania that was actually blooming, I thought, this is too early. So, you know, I'm not the kind of gardener scientist who has a journal that says, first crocus bloom, first lilac bloom, first forsythia bloom. Well, because I don't have a lilac or a forsythia. That's why it doesn't say that. But I also don't have the journal. So I looked on the journal that I do have, which is pictures on Facebook. And it turns out that last year, on March 15th, my daffodils were in full bloom. Which means, you know, in 2 weeks they'll be in full bloom. Maybe we're not so early. But I love yellow. I love yellow is why I have daffodils. I have daffodils because I love yellow and they were a bargain. That's why I have daffodils. I was at an auction of I can't explain the auction in 5 minutes, but they had bags of daffodil bulbs, and I bid 45 cents and somebody bid 50 cents and I bid 55 cents and then I won. Everybody else stopped and they asked me how many bags I wanted, and I said, well, how many bags of bulbs are there? And there were 13 bags of bulbs. And then when I said, oh, I want all 13 bags of bulbs, there were 3 dozen bulbs in each bag. 13 times 3 is 39 dozen, and 39 dozen is like 144 and 144 and 100. It's like into the 400s. And I put them all in the ground, and the first year I found out those bulbs were really tired. Wherever they had come from, they were really tired. I only got about 60 blooms from those 400 bulbs. But now, 4 years later, I've fed them and I've loved them. I've sung songs to them. I've told them how much I love yellow. And as it turns out, the squirrels eat the crocus flowers and the squirrels eat the tulip bulbs, but the squirrels do not eat the daffodil bulbs. So it's like, I don't know if you ever did those standardized tests where you had to do Miller analogies and you're like, squirrels are to tulip bulbs as Randy is to chocolate cake, you know, that kind of thing. And squirrels are to daffodil bulbs as Randy is to, oh, we should say eggplant mushroom casserole or something like that. That's what the squirrels must be saying about those daffodil bulbs. It's like, run away. But then I get this, like last year, I think I did have over 500 daffodil blooms. And so I'm hoping for 500 this year in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, if you're anywhere near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you can just text me and say, hey, I'd love to see your daffodils, and just come right over, sit in the little greenhouse and see my fields of yellow and talk to the squirrels and say, go eat somebody else's tulips because these daffodils are bleh, not for you.
Take a deep breath and let it out. And we'll put some notes in the chat box, and y'all who are watching can do the same on YouTube.
So here are some comments. Ruba says, love of yellow and a bargain. And now you have a whole daffodil family living with you. Williams Wordsworth would understand. Wish I could be there in 2 weeks to see the beauty, Randy. Mary Ellen says, love the image of you singing to the tulip bulbs and telling them how much you love yellow. Phil says, squirrel analogies. Yellow, 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 and some more yellow, yellow. Yes, yellow is my favorite. Yellow daffodils. Shelley says, yellow daffodils. I must not be a squirrel. And Angela, first crocus bloom in the Indian spring when there might be still snow on the ground, and then on to daffodils. I learned a lot about the eating habits of squirrels. And you, Randy, no eggplant or mushrooms. Yeah, don't believe everything you hear on the internet. I'm sorry, that was my comment. Are there any comments from watchers on YouTube, Marielle?
Yeah, Anne says, just noticed the pictures on the wall behind you of flowers blooming. And Karen says, symbiosis, you and the daffodils. It's easier to grow when you're feeling warmth.
That's a good comment.
Thank you.
Good. So take another deep breath. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah, Shelley, you're up next.
Ooh. I have been a staunch non-theist my entire life. It's not that I don't believe in things, just the G word doesn't do it for me in every form. And it doesn't help if you substitute it with your higher power of your choosing or any of that. But there's something very interesting I've learned that comes, I think, from a world that is occupied or reserved for people who do have that kind of faith. There's something called angels. When I was in the Sistine Chapel, I thought it was just cute babies on the ceiling. But there are angels in the world, and I know it for a fact. There's an old boyfriend of mine who only shows up in my life when my life is really, really shit. And there have been times where I would sit by the phone and think, it can't get much worse. Where is he? And he's nowhere to be seen. But he knows when it's really, really shit, and he shows up. I never thought of him as an angel until I had a child who was not, what's the phrase? Neurotypical. And man, did I worry about this child. So many places to go wrong when you're neurotypical. So many places to go wrong when you're not neurotypical. And I noticed that every time he'd get to a crossroad, somebody would show up and take him across. And it happened over and over again. And I started noticing Adam's angels, as I call them. And I have a list of Adam's angels. But then recently, I started noticing that Shelley has angels too. Not as many as Adam. And I think that's because Shelley crowded her life with people. And angels are very, very shy critters. They are afraid of multitudes of people, of chaos. They just don't do well in that energy. So in recent years, I've been removing things and people from my life. And suddenly there's a lot of space. Some people would call it loneliness. It's space. I know that because the angels are showing up for a visit. They don't live here, but they show up. And sometimes it's a person. And sometimes it's a cat. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's a frigging pandemic. And it's Shelley's angel. Because it either wraps its huge wings around me, or it makes such gale force winds that it blows me off my ass from a place that I had no business being. Either way, they are there to show me or tell me or kick me in the butt, depending on what's necessary. And they show up when I need them. And they are magical. I think everybody has angels. I think if you slow down, listen carefully, and look around, maybe open a window. So be nice to your angels.
And take a deep breath and let it out. And we'll put some notes in the chat box. Would you like to read your comments, Shelley?
Oh, no, I'm enjoying them too much. Okay. Where were we? Let me try here. Thank you. I really was getting, okay. Maybe cute babies are angels. This is Ruba. And friends who know when to turn up. Your story makes me want to look around for where the shy angels might be hiding, Shelley. Randy says, fantastic and inspiring wisdom. I want to see my magical angels by slowing down and looking around. Phil says, cute babies on the ceilings and all that shows up when there is space. I like the shy angel idea. Makes complete sense to me. And Angela said, yes to angels, especially for Adam and Shelley too. Not as many as Adam. Angels need space. No room for the G word here when there are angels. Everyone has angels. Like this cute babies on the Sistine Chapel. Slow down, listen, and be embraced by their huge wings. And Mary Ellen says, enjoyed this description of angels very much. I'm going to pay more attention to the possibility of them in my life from now on. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
And from YouTube, Vi says, angels taking forms, silver linings, looking on the bright side. Karen says, you took me to a place I love to be. Thank you. And props to all the angels out there.
It's good. Take another deep breath and let it out. Thank you, Shelley. Ruba, you're up next.
Do any of you recognize that beginning to a very famous movie musical? Yes, The Sound of Music. Just imagine me in a Swiss outfit out in the Alps. Woo, the hills are alive. Apparently there were helicopters filming, and it was, you know, maybe not as quite as lovely as what we saw on the screen. Oh my goodness, but when I was 5 years old, I saw The Sound of Music. In fact, I just wonder if I've already told this story on YouTube. Well, I'm going to tell it again because recently I was with a couple of people and, you know, don't tell anybody, but just for the last 4.5 years, I've been a Quaker pastor. I'm a pastor. I mean, I managed to escape that for a long time, but now I am one. And so people, you know, they bring up the G word quite a bit with me, and they bring up the Bible, and and they were talking, a couple of people were talking about who they identified with in the Bible. You know, and one of them said this person in the Bible, and one of them said Jacob, and one of them said this. They said, Ruba, who do you identify with in the Bible? And I said, well, actually, I can't think of a Bible story right now that I can identify with. But when I was growing up, I identified with every character in The Sound of Music as the years went by. Have I told you about this yet? Anyway, that movie came out when I was 5 years old. Gretel, the youngest Von Trapp girl, was 5 years old. I actually remember how excited I was in the movie theater in 1965, and Gretel was 5, and I was 5. Well, so no VCRs. Really, this is a very long time ago, children. No VCRs, nothing like that. So you had to wait a couple of years, or 3 maybe, before the movie came around on TV again, or maybe in the theaters. And as I grew up and every few years saw The Sound of Music, I identified with a different character each year. So it was Brigitte for quite a while, because she's the one that loved books, and she was also on Lost in Space, Angela Cartwright. But then I finally had to graduate to Louisa, and then it was Liesel. You know, I am 16 going on 17. And then there was a gap for whatever reason. And the next time I saw the movie, I was in college, and I identified with Maria. Whoa, that was a shocking moment. But really, I did identify with Maria. I mean, she was, she was spiritual. She wanted to be a nun, but also she liked the captain, and she taught his kids how to sing, and that's why he fell in love with her. I mean, really, I'm just going to cut to the chase. My life did not quite unfold in the way that Maria's did, but I always kind of thought that it might, you know, and would sing wherever I could. I think now, oh, isn't this weird? I would identify with the Mother Superior, you know, climb every mountain, you know, a religious leader, and she sings. Anyway, it's just so interesting that, you know, these stories that get into us. And that definitely was a hugely important story for me growing up. I love musicals, and I find characters from musicals coming in and out. Okay, I'm gonna switch gears, and then I'll tell you how we're gonna get there, at least until the bell tolls. I found out about almost 8 years ago that I had ADHD. I don't so much have the hyperactivity part. You wouldn't believe that, seeing me do big body stories. But yes, I have ADHD. Well, what that means is I've had it ever since I was born. You know, it's like nearsightedness. It's it's how your brain is. And oh my gosh, at age, 55, to discover that's why so many things had baffled me about things my brain could do and things. Why couldn't my brain do those things? Why couldn't I keep up with those things? So it's been quite a journey since then. A journey about, oh wow, ADD, ADHD, what that means. And do I tell people? I guess I'm telling some people right now. Do I tell people? Do I not tell people? Do I tell people who I work for? Well, it's not like I wouldn't tell someone who asked me, but there are those things you volunteer and those things you don't volunteer. And I found myself volunteering that information a lot more frequently lately. I'll hear myself say, well, I have ADD, and therefore I struggle with keeping up with such and such. And I feel this little moment of, oh, is that going to change how they feel about me? And then I think, well, wait a minute. They already know how I do things and don't do things. So now I'm just letting them know why. I don't know. There's kind of a freedom in that.
And take a deep breath. And let it out. And we'll put some notes in the chat box. Would you like to read your comments, Ruba?
Okay, yes, they're popping up. Shelley says, singing, ADHD, growing up with the sound of music. Love how this makes so much sense to my ADHD mind. Bill, how convenient that movie characters don't age. So there's always a new one to identify with. and then to learn what you have about how your brain works. Good all around. Angela, the hills are ablaze with the sound of music and helicopters. Of course, a Quaker pastor identifies with Gretel, Brigida, Maria, not the women of the Bible. And now Mother Superior arrives on scene, and the change of course, to ADD, and the bafflement of that, and the liberation of claiming that identity at last. Mary Ellen, there is a freedom in that. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Oh. Thank you, everybody.
And I think Randy's is up farther.
Is
I'll
it
just
up farther? Yeah, Randy, yours didn't come out for me.
I'll read it. The movie is both long ago and immediately present today. I enjoyed knowing reasons for people's quirks. Yeah.
And Karen says, such a delight. It was so cool to hear how you resonated to all the different characters through your life. Sound of Music is a favorite of mine too. Yay to freedom.
And take another deep breath and let it out. Thank you, Ruba. Angela.
Oh, okay, I'm unmuted. I'll take this off. I'm always blurry as usual. I'm taking Qigong, and we're learning to enliven all the meridians in our bodies. So up like this, and down this meridian to the fingertips, and up and back. And it's this body has so many meridians. And this body, this sort of yin, sort of the largest organ, contains all these meridians. And you know what else it contains? It contains water. Last Sunday, I took a class on the water body. It was developed by Noguchi, and he came out of post-war Japan. And he said that to even use muscle and bone to move the body is violent. And so it's just like, what is it like to just find the water in the body where you do have to use muscle and bone to move, but what if you imagine it's the water that's moving you? Oh, I think it's at 70%. Just rising and falling. You know, some of you know this. I grew up in an island in Southeast Alaska. So there was just water, like it was 1.5 miles to get to the water. The water was steely green. And, you know, there's always a brininess in the air. And when it was low tide, there was a stinkiness in the air. And the water is sort of, you know, that water lives in me. And so that's part of my home, is this water body. And then when I was thinking about the body, I was thinking about the incarcerated body, you know, and how, you know, I used to do some meditations and I would think of like barbed wire inside of my body. Just sort of the epigenetics of trauma, to get a little bit technical, being Japanese American. And, it was just February 19th. And that's the anniversary of the signing of Executive Order 9066, which allowed for the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans. And so there was so much, if you've done nothing wrong and you're put behind barbed wire, then who you are and what you look like must be the crime. And so that was passed down on me. And so, it's sort of like learning that maybe this, the imagination of the barbed wire, that, where do I find home in my body? And that's been a long journey. And it's been through movement and through storytelling. And it's sort of like, the waters of Alaska, the waters that are just part of who I'm just water. This, instead of thinking of me as a big bag of bones or a big bag of barbed wire, maybe I'm just a big bag of water. Kaplop. I guess water doesn't do that. I think water goes swoosh, swoosh, wrong sound, swoosh, swoosh. And, I'm walking down I was taking a walk this morning, and Randy was saying, there's all these blooms, there's daffodils. I don't think there'll be 400 daffodils, but, there's daffodils all over. And the crocuses, I don't see so many crocuses around the Bay Area. And just feeling how I am a part of nature, and that, maybe there's not just water in me, but there's like these flowers in me, and, that the body being a home and to belong in the body is such a radical act, or it's just such a way of starting with the body, and the aging body, the decomposing body. I'm getting old. And, I was meditating, and we had to imagine, I am sitting here meditating, but this is not me. Or I am walking down the street, but this is not me. And that felt so liberating, yes, it's not me. And I was thinking, because I'm getting old and my body's decomposing, that to feel like I am part of the eternal, so I'm limiting myself to my skin and my water and my bones and my garden and all these other, different ways my mind works. But what is this about me that is limitless and so vast?
And take a deep breath and let it out. And we'll put some notes in the chat box. Would you like to read your comments, Angela?
Sure. I don't think I can read all. Somehow I haven't been getting all the comments. So from Shelley, I have, when who you are and how you look is wrong, it cannot be wrong. Water is never wrong, limitless and vast. Phil says, I could feel my body matching the waves of water in yours. Limitlessness, expansiveness, water inside and out. Mary Ellen says, really enjoyed your fluidity of movement. My mirror neurons turned on and I was floating with you, at home in the body. That is part of nature and all things. That's all I can read.
And I think Ruba's and Randy's are maybe further up. Ruba, would you like to read yours?
I don't see them.
I can feel the water flowing through my body as I see your flowing, dancing movements, Angela. Exchanging the barbed wire by claiming your home and belonging in limitless freedom. Wow.
And Randy, do you want to read yours?
Yeah, I love the mystery of what I am, the water, the flowers, the epigenetic transmission of trauma, and the mystery of aging and decomposing into the universe. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, Vi says, chills, moving water, body, earth, everything.
Good. Take another deep breath and let it out. Thank you, Angela. Okay, I'm up. We might have been 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know. But Tom and I would have been in the kitchen of his house, which was just 2 blocks from my house in Bloomington, Indiana. And we might be in the kitchen and we might have gotten out the K-Rose syrup and heated it up and did all the things you might you need to do to make it into taffy. I just remember we would do this stuff, we would cook it, and he knew how to do this. I didn't know how to do this. I was just following him. And he knew what to do to make it taffy, and we would end up pouring it out on cookie sheets or whatever, and you had to let it cool down a little bit before you tried to pull it. And that was always a little bit exciting, whether you could figure out when the right time was to start pulling the taffy. So we might have been doing that in the kitchen, or we might have been taking those boxes of paraffin. I don't know if anyone remembers, you get these kind of cubes of paraffin, wax. And I think they were primarily for doing the, when you canned things, you would pour a little bit of wax at the top to seal it. But we were making candles. So you would melt the paraffin, and oftentimes, like one of the techniques, we had several techniques, I have to say. We had several things we could do to make candles, but one of them was to take a milk carton, which made a really nice big candle, and you'd fill it up as much as you could with wax. And so you'd have a really big kind of squarish candle. And then you'd take some more wax and you would heat it up. And then as it cooled, you would whip it with a fork a little bit. And you would end up with this kind of frothy, waxy stuff that then you would put on the edges of the candle, and then you'd put some glitter. You take some glitter and put some glitter around the candle. Wonderful holiday candles, and they were so big that they lasted like from year to 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 year. So we might have been in the kitchen doing that. Tom is going to turn 70 on March 15th. I'm going to turn 70 on March 16th. One of the really weird things that I didn't discover until, I don't know, I must have been, it was late. I don't know why I didn't understand this earlier on, but I understood it when I went to the 30th high school reunion, and I realized all the people in my high school class are the same age. I know this might not seem like a shocking thing to you, but the thing that really struck me was that meant that we were all at really similar places in our lives, because we were about the same age. And so when we gathered every 5 years or 10 years for a reunion, we were kind of in this, we're kind of in this, I don't know why this didn't occur to me before, but it's just the truth. And so this year, Tom is going to turn 70 on March 15th. I'm going to turn 70 on March 16th. And most of my classmates are going to turn 70. But this really isn't about turning 70. It's just the fact that, I'm talking about a story that started when I might have been 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. And Tom was the one who often led me into these kind of art things. And he introduced me to X-Acto knives in high school. Now, again, this may not seem like a really radical kind of idea, but like I'd not seen an X-Acto knife before then, and I was using scissors, and like I've got some scissors right here. And here's the challenge with scissors. Here's the big challenge with scissors when you're cutting stuff out. What about those places where you want to cut a hole right in the middle? You can do that with a pair of scissors. Like, I don't know if I put this, you could take this and you have to bend the paper a little bit, and then you have to kind of do something like this, and then you have to, it's a good thing I'm last because I'm cutting up the list of the order of the stories. But then you can cut it, and I've made a really bad circle. I don't think Tom would be impressed with that, although I think I could turn this into a necklace. But that's a problem with an X-Acto knife. This is not a problem. You can cut things out of the middle things with an X-Acto knife, and that's why it was so interesting and important to be introduced to this tool, this artistic tool by Tom, how did he know these things? How did he know how to make, we went to the same church, and Tom could figure out how to construct a giant wreath. He made a wooden frame in 4 pieces out of wood and, chicken wire or something like that. And then he had all these branches, from artificial trees, and he attached them somehow to the, statement and put the whole thing together. And then it had to be hauled up with 2 big ropes to the side of the church. First United Methodist Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Like, how did he know to do that? It was amazing. And what possessed him to take his little Carmen Ghia and paint it forest green? There he was in the garage, spray painting a whole car green. Like, I wouldn't have thought to paint my car green. I wouldn't have thought make a big giant wreath. I wouldn't have thought take some wax and whip it up and make it frothy and stick it on the side of a candle. I wouldn't have thought pull taffy. I wouldn't have thought the magic of X-Acto knives. And it's not that I planned this story so I had these tools around. These are the tools that I use all the time. I just recently ordered like 100 of these really sharp, dangerous blades. I've got a lot of them. So if you need a circle cut out of the middle of something, or for that matter, if you need a little surgery, because that's really what they're for, just give me a call. Or better yet, call Tom, because he'll probably be better at it. But just remember, he's old, even older than me. And take a deep breath. Let it out. And you can put some notes in the chat box. So Mary Ellen says, really enjoyed your fluidity of movement. My mirror neurons turned on. Oh, no, wait, that's Angela, sorry. Shelley says, I'm in love with your story with Tom. Thank you, Tom, for introducing Phil to art. Who knows what Phil would have become? Maybe Interplay would not have existed. I like Tom. Exacto. Angela says, Caro syrup and pulling taffy, paraffin candles, whipped wax and glitter, holiday candles, X-Acto knives to cut out the middle. Good thing I am last because I'm cutting up the order of the stories. Haha. Homage to your mentor, Tom. He is older than you, by the way, but one day. Deep bows to Tom for inspiring the artist in you, and deep bows for you to taking art to a wild new place. And let me see if I can find some up above. Aruba says, I absolutely remember making candles out of those blocks of paraffin in milk cartons. Think of all the beautiful things you've made in your 70 years minus 2 weeks, Phil. Beauty upon beauty, scattered all over the world. And let's see. Randy says, I remember milk carton candles and the magic of X-Acto knives. Tom is my theory of social change. Oh, and there's one more at the bottom. Mary Ellen says, frothy, foamy stuff and add some glitter. Candles, wreaths, painting cars. It makes sense to me that you had the realization that you are all the same age. Yeah. Anything online?
Karen said, I'm going to try that candle making technique. Funny that you and your class are all the same age and you just noticed. All those memories of young life and friends. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for all those. Take a deep breath and let it out.
Thank you, Phil.
Again, for
that
story. And that's all our stories. So again, we're really glad that y'all joined us online. These will be posted on the YouTube channel. You'll notice that there are other videos from other live streams and also some of the stories that we've recorded from some of the big body story classes. So especially if you're subscribed to the channel, you'll have easy access. You'll have access anyway, but you might get an alert. They might just show up in your feed if you subscribe. So again, thanks for coming, and we'll see you the next time. And thanks to you to all the storytellers, and thanks to Mary Ellen for helping with